of the victims?
It is my first priority, and I believe the priority of many of us here, to respect their privacy and their timeline. These are folks that have been deeply impacted by trauma and are grieving. And frankly, I think it should be up to them whether and if they want to share any personal identifying information with anyone at all. But it's not up to me, it's a law enforcement decision, and so when law enforcement feels like that's appropriate, they will share that information.
The shooter was named yesterday. Do you know why the victims were not named?
No, that's a law enforcement decision.
He unfortunately walked out the door, too. Do you know when we'll be able to talk to him?
I don't.
Adding off that question, I mean, we've been sitting here for the last 27 hours, as Adam mentioned. Why would you guys not have the proper people in place to answer some of these questions? You guys, including the fire chief, have sat here and tried to say that you want to dispel rumors on social media. You want to make sure that you're giving factual information. We're asking questions that have been circulating on social media, including rumors about the victims. Why not provide clarification and actually have people here to answer those questions to set the record straight?
I don't know how many times I can say this. We will share good factual information when we can. None of you is obliged to stay here. You're free to leave. You don't have to be sitting in this room if you don't want to. We will share information when we can. It's very important that that information be as factual as possible. All right, I'm going to say this and then we're done. It is absolutely none of y'all's business who was harmed in this incident. Please have some human decency and respect for the people who lost loved ones or were injured themselves or whose children were injured. Just have some human decency, folks. Leave them alone. Let them grieve. Let them recover. Let them heal. Don't feed off their pain. We'll share what we can when we can, and not before that. Thank you.
Is there another briefing scheduled?
All right, a very explosive end to the news conference here as school officials getting upset with the media, continuing to demand the names of the deceased and the victims as well. So there's a boiling point right now going on in Madison, Wisconsin, a day after the tragedy that we, of course, all remember. We brought it to you directly right here on Live Now from Fox, and we want to continue to talk a little bit more about this and, of course, school shootings in general as well. Such as you could see it there, a very touching point for so many right now that are going through this trauma and stress out there in Wisconsin right now. So I want to bring in our next guest to help break down just what's next for Madison, Wisconsin, and really schools in general when we're talking about security. So let's bring in our next guest here. This is Toby Braun, founder of American Special Investigative Group and a seasoned authority in active shootings and school security. And Toby, we saw at the tail end there just how much of a boiling point we're seeing now with the media and the school officials as they are dealing with such heartbreak.
Absolutely, and it's really first and foremost, I mean, my heart, and I know the nation's heart tonight goes out to the families of the victims, that student and that teacher that tragically lost their lives, and then the others that are currently in the hospital fighting for their lives. And truly wish them all the best, and hopefully a speedy recovery, and hopefully we don't see any the death toll rise in this any further. And then also it's important to notate the law enforcement officials, the first responders that tirelessly have been working this case for 24 hours now. You know, it's really, as a first responder myself, I mean, I can really understand what these men and women are going through right now, and really, you know, that should really just reiterate the support that we as a nation have to give those folks, and the thoughts that should be with them tonight. It's really it is an active case right now, so I certainly understand where the city officials and law enforcement officials are coming from tonight. In these cases, when they're active investigations, you're very limited on the kind of information you're able to release, not to jeopardize the investigation. It is a criminal investigation right now. It's a homicide investigation. And then also, they have to keep in account the victims' families here that are obviously grieving, and so I certainly understand that official that was just last on TV, which ended a little fiery with the press in the room. I certainly understand where she's coming from when she's telling the reporters, hey, let the families grieve. Right now is not the time to release the victims' information.
Yeah, it's such a heartbreaking moment to be shown there in Madison. So, Toby, my question to you this morning, and really probably as it was happening yesterday, what was happening in school districts all across the country when they were seeing this horrific images played out once again? What do school districts do as they see these types of situations play out?
Well, I think it really, I mean, that depends, right? Each individual school district is going to react differently. I'm assuming school districts in the Madison, Wisconsin area, they sort of reacted to it pretty abruptly. I'm sure a lot of other campuses were shut down, which is usually a protocol for an active shooter in the area, that you lock down other campuses in the event there's copycats, in the event there's a shooter that's on the loose, or in the event that there's multiple assailants. Which is a whole other conversation that we can have, which I do believe is a threat that we're facing as a nation too. But really, yeah, those protocols are really specific to each individual school district. I do believe, and from experience in coming to the schools and teaching active shooter response to not only the faculty but also to law enforcement. I can't tell you that usually when there is an incident like that, and we've seen so many of them this year alone, usually that's when people start to pay more attention to it again, and it sort of comes back top of mind. And that's something that we have to eradicate. That we can't go on as a country not doing enough for our children. That we have to wait for a shooting to happen until more action is being taken, and clearly not enough is being done, right? I think some districts are much more protected than others, and they take this a lot more serious. Granted, it comes down to resources and funding, but we shouldn't make excuses for it. The lives of our children, of American children, are the #1 priority, and we have to do more.
And Toby, besides making every school in America a fortress or making it look like you're about to jump on a plane, is there anything that can be done to prevent these types of things from happening?
Yeah, Mike. I mean, that's a great question. And the police chief, I believe it was the Madison police chief, that was one of the first officials who spoke on this. He went on. One of the first things he said was there was signs of the shooting, just like there are in most of these shootings. I mean, I don't know the exact percentage, but the vast majority of these school shootings, there are prior signs leading up to a shooting. There are social media posts, there are threats being made by the shooter, and it's indicative of most of these shootings. And again, it comes down to pattern recognition. We know these shooters; they're likely to make a threat, which requires a better threat intelligence, better social media monitoring, having technology in place to intercept those threats, and then to take enhanced preventative measures in the event that such a threat is being made. But it really comes down to security for a school, or any type of security. It's sort of like an onion, and there's different layers to it. And the point of it is to make it as difficult as possible for an adversarial party to infiltrate your core, which in that situation is your faculty and your students. Right, you care about property and things like that. That's all secondary. That's not important. The important part is life here. So the life is the core, and you try to make it as hard as possible. So it's not just one thing. I mean, I understand that this campus in Madison, they had cameras in place. Well, cameras aren't going to prevent a shooter. Having a gun-free zone is not going to prevent a shooting, because bad guys, or bad girls in this instance, don't care about gun-free zones. They're gonna carry out their carnage anytime there's a soft target, when the ability is there. So it's really about hardening hardening those campuses and doing more. And that goes to having physical security measures in place, having access control in place, and then also training of faculty and really an active shooter response on what to do if this incident really happens. And I've seen so many of these trainings that really they don't focus on the, we're teaching people run, hide, fight. We're teaching those faculty those concepts in the event that there was a breach, a security breach, right, where your physical security just doesn't intercept that bad guy and that adversarial party now comes through. It really is up to your faculty, which hopefully the school will have an armed officer, whether it's a school resource officer, a law enforcement officer, or a private contracted security party that's armed. Hopefully they'll have that in place, which absolutely is a necessity. But secondary to that, you have to have better training for teachers. Because in the event that that party is able to take out, in worst case scenario, your resource officer, and he now enters that classroom or the study hall, which was the case in Madison, those faculty, they have to be prepared to react. And the only way they're able to react is if they get the proper training.
Yeah, Toby, I think you pinned it there when you were talking about, bad people, bad girls, bad guys, felons. They don't care what the laws on the books are. They don't care when they go to a school that says gun-free zone. They probably like that, so they don't care
Right.
about the laws that go into place.
No.
They are going to commit what they want to do.
Correct. Absolutely. And again, and that's back to, we can have a whole nother conversation about gun laws and all that. And really, let's be honest, in this situation, really, that the gun laws, what difference would it have made, right? I mean, you have a party who breaches, that campus. It's a gun-free zone. It was a 15-year-old girl. She wasn't allowed to have a gun in the first place. And granted, we don't know the backstory of where that weapon came from, and we're not going to make speculations here right now. But nevertheless, you have to have real security in place. Just having laws in place or rules or regulations in place is not going to make a difference in a situation like this.
Toby, do you think what would make a difference if maybe school administrators, school teachers had more of the ability to try to flag maybe a certain group of students where they feel, okay, they seem to be going a little off course. Maybe we should have someone check in on them. If they had that more of that ability where it would seem they could maybe isolate someone and investigate them a little bit more before putting them back into a classroom, given teachers and administrators that ability, would that help in situations like this and in other types of school shootings where you're able to see that someone looks like they're going maybe not the route of normal students?
Yeah, I definitely think, that's a great point, Mike. And I really think it comes down to addressing another key element of preventing these shootings. It's not only security, it's also addressing mental illness in our country, which unfortunately is very, very prevalent. And I don't think clearly not enough's being done. I mean, I think that's a very objective statement. And we have to also, I think, enable those schools to do more and to really first and foremost detect when this is happening, when there could be some sort of troubled student, and then also giving them the resources to react to that and to take the proper measurements. Obviously, when it comes to that, if you have a student who's potentially displaying violent tendencies, there's current laws on the records, right? Well, law enforcement can then come in and force place that individual in protective custody and force them to get mental help and at least be locked up for 72 hours usually. But not that requires someone to make threats and to really be suicidal or be a danger to others. And if they're just troubled and if they're just bullied, which is another huge problem in our schools that we have to address, we have to do more for these kids, then obviously it doesn't rise to that level. And again, schools have to do more. I think there has to be a much bigger emphasis on mental health counseling and helping students that are clearly in need and that are clearly struggling.
Yes, so true, so true. Well, Toby, great conversation on such a sad subject. We appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox, giving us some great insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
You take care. All right, everyone, and we will take our first break here of the hour. Stay right here with us. More top stories, headlines, and, of course, breaking news when it does happen, all right here on Live Now. Welcome back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be with you as we continue to bring you different live feeds and top headlines. We do have another live feed that we want to bring to you out of Pennsylvania.